Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Unweighted Life podcast. We have myself, Ashley, Suzette, the visionary and founder of LH Spa and Rejuvenation in Madison and Livingston. And this is Nurse Meg. She is the nurse that I did the semaglutide through, and she works with the med spa as well. So today we want to touch on what maintenance looks like, just maintenance as a whole, how my experience is with it, Suzette's experience with it, because we both are still actively taking the medication. And then we're going to just go a little bit into that and answer some of the most popular questions that we get asked.
I think everybody's perception of it is very different.
Yeah.
And I think people need to know how it actually works in their body, like the longevity of the medicine, because you can make sense of it in your mind, but it's not the way it is.
Yeah.
And sometimes that, I go over it in the consultation, but your awareness of what you're doing at the consultation versus months in, you're a totally different person.
Right.
You know it better than I do because you're the one taking it, not me, but also perfect, right on the head. People lose sight of how it's supposed to work. So there's a few tips and tricks I like to just hit home again as like a friendly reminder. That way if patients are a little bit lost and they don't really understand the concept, it's nice to just review.
Well, I feel like even being on it for as long as I have, you start to just almost forget and you kind of like develop old habits again. Because I think that mental awareness of it is so strong in the beginning. And then once you're so used to it's like anything, once you're so used to it and you've been doing it for so long, it kind of just becomes routine. And you don't always know if that routine is good.
And I think that once you make sense of something in your head, you think it's correct when it's not.
Right.
And it's not the way it works. And then you start giving advice to other people and it's just not the way.
I also have some things that like I've done on my maintenance journey that I've caught myself like 3 weeks at a time. I'm like not eating great and I'm like, okay. Like, this is not where we're supposed to be. So I'll run you guys through my experience. I'll touch on a little bit. So basically I started semaglutide December of 2022 and I hit my goal weight in April of 2023. And I ended up getting off of it for a whole month and thinking I could be without it. And I shortly was like, yeah, no, I don't want to do this because maintenance exists for a reason. I then contacted them, went back on it. So my experience is going to look a little bit different. I tapered off of it and then I was off of it completely, where I think most people now, knowing that they're going to start a maintenance journey on semaglutide, you would just taper down and kind of find your sweet spot, which is what I wish I had done. But I was trying to tell everyone like you could do it without it, and I figured out that it's not always possible for everybody. So I started tapering down probably March of 2023.
Yeah, because I went on leave in May and you were off. We talked right before I went out on leave.
Yeah.
So
it
between
was
March and the end of April.
So March, I tapered down and then I was off of it for like a good, I would say 5 weeks. And then right before Memorial Day weekend, I took my first injection again because I just really wasn't sure how I was going to survive summer with all that food noise and the drinking and being out on the boat. And it just like didn't make sense to me. I did all this work. I spent this money. I worked so hard to keep the weight off. And then now it's like when the hardest time comes, I'm going to be off of it. Like it just didn't make sense. So then I got on it and I actually started back at 10. So for reference, my highest dose, we do it in units with the semaglutide. I got up to 50 units and then I tapered down from 50 down to 10 and then I got off of it at 10. So I was going down by increments of 10, but I was doing every 2 weeks.
And
so
for clarification, 50 units is half of the max. So that's about 1.7 milligrams and 10 units is a quarter of a milligram. So for every quarter of a milligram, that's another 10 units. So if you were down, you said you restarted at 10, that's 0.25 milligrams.
Which is what most people, or they start at 0.5.
No, most patients on like a starter dose of Ozempic and Wegovy, even like your brand name ones, those are all 0.25 for starter dose.
Gotcha. So, okay, so then I went from 50 to, I think I did 45, then 40, then 35, then 30, and then I wanted to kind of get off. So I was like 20, 10, and then I was at 10 for like a couple weeks and then I was done. And then when I got back on it, I went 10, 20, 30, 40, and I didn't go past 40, but 40 was too high. So then I was doing 40 every 2 weeks. Now, at that time, this was discussed by a lot of people. I was, reading it in my comments. People were doing it every other week.
People were obsessed with what you were on. It was actually very frustrating.
I was also out on leave during this time, so I was sitting there like,
and everybody wants you to do the conversion, and it was like,
my head was spinning,
and I'm like, stop dosing, like stop talking about it, please.
It was rough. I'm sorry.
But it was nice to see. I think people, just like everything else, we're an instant gratification society.
Yes.
So if I hear
Yes.
you're doing it, I want to do exactly what you're doing. I don't care if I'm
Exactly.
deathly ill. I want it because it's working for her.
Yeah.
Yes.
And people were immediately being like, well, what's your body weight? What's your height? If she's just like me, then it should work exactly the same. And we've learned time and time again.
I never
not.
hear for Botox, like, what's your dose? Like, people don't get,
How many units do you have?
yeah, people don't get fascinated
No.
by that, but they get fascinated with semaglutide.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I also think so many people did it with me, like in unison.
They
Like,
did.
we
They
were
did.
like friends, and I was kind of,
Yeah.
they didn't have the medical advice that I was getting, so they would come
That's
to
it.
me, and
Yeah.
I was able to share her words, through experience. And I think it was just a really nice combo.
Yeah,
And
it
it
was.
made a
It
lot
is.
of people feel comfortable and like they weren't alone doing it. And, obviously we were happy to do that.
And you also would shed light on it during the lives and be
Yes.
like, listen, if you are actively taking this medication and you have this many questions, I'm here to answer it, meaning you were there to answer it as a non-medical professional, not
Right.
official medical advice.
Yeah.
But you almost kind of highlighted, if you're left with this many questions and you have literally no idea what you're even doing or why you're on this dose, doesn't that raise more of a question?
Yes.
Right.
Like, you would never question what your blood pressure medication is at or why
Right.
you're at that
Right.
dose.
I started telling people, I was like, the fact that you're relying on me, someone who's just experience based, like that is concerning. And if you're watching and I messaged you that, sorry, but I would message people that, and I would
Yeah.
say, listen, I really advise getting attention from a medical provider because this doesn't make sense. Like, I can only share what I'm doing. It doesn't mean that this is right for you. And I think that, someone was like, oh, I'm 145 pounds when I was at 145 pounds, but they were also 45. And I'm 28. I was 27 or 28 at the time. So we're living two completely different.
and we're composed differently.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I'm not a magician. There's
Right.
millions of medical providers out there.
Right.
My
I
way is
think
not
you're a
the
magician.
only way,
Right.
right? Like we think, and I always say that. I say, go back to your provider, include them in the
Right.
conversation because my awareness and I'm basing my experience off the research I'm doing and off of primarily observational evidence. So with
Right.
other practitioners, I want them included in the conversation and they have an opinion too that matters.
Well, I can tell you they're not having it because to this day, I still get messages asking, like, hey, can I still come for guidance even though I'm not being treated by you? And I'm like, well,
Coaching almost.
coaching, that's actually what they want. And they want someone because the doctor's not answering. And don't get me started on the portal because
I know.
And I think some of it, and we've been over this, it's the insurance-based model. I don't
Right.
fault those providers. I've worked for insurance-based companies before. You truly are just a number and you're just checking patients off your list. You don't have the time to sit there with a patient for a half hour just to talk about side effects about one medication. They
Yeah.
will not get reimbursed for that.
No.
Yeah.
So
No,
they're
for sure.
not, unless
tough.
you're checking off things that you're getting done and you're able to bill that insurance,
Right.
the company unfortunately is not making money. And that is really a shame, which is why, as we saw today, sometimes I get too excited and I answer too many questions because that's part of what people want.
Yeah.
That's what they're paying for.
Yeah.
That's why it's
And it does, right. And
Big
it does
difference
make
between
sense.
that.
And it's good to have people like you guys who do that. And you're not always left with a doctor who can't even give you like any guidance or any of that whatsoever.
That's your value.
Yes.
You said you restarted, you went
maintenance
10,
every
20,
2 weeks.
30, 40.
Right. And then I was every 2 weeks. And I did that for a good 2-3 months, I would say, because I didn't want to do an injection weekly. And I was at a good weight. I didn't want to lose any more. I also didn't want to not have the 40 in me because I felt like it was such a good number. But once I decided to break that into 20 weekly, I saw the biggest difference in my body, in my mental state, everything. I was like really fatigued doing 40 every 2 weeks. And like that first week on 40, I was sluggish. I had like literally zero energy. And then as soon as I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to break this into 20 once a week. I had a whole different outlook on it. And it didn't change the effects of me. But when I was that second week of being so high and not having anything in me, it was like shocking my body when I would put 40 back in and my body couldn't handle it. And it kind of took a little bit for me to realize, plus the sex drive thing that weighed in too. And now that I'm at a lower, that doesn't really happen as much anymore, which is great. So I definitely attribute that to being at such a high dose. I did 30 the past couple weeks just because I've had a lot going on.
But again, that's your mental.
It is. I know.
And it's okay.
I think
and
feel
us
different.
too.
I feel like I could lose weight again. I love this feeling because I don't have that guilt. I don't have that mental where
That's
I'm like
amazing.
eating too much. Like I've confidently, since being at 30, this was my third week at 30 units. It was 25, and then 30, whatever. I'm always up and down by 5, but I have eaten half of everything the last 3 weeks. Everything. I've had less interest in alcohol. So I'm happier. I feel healthier, where I think at a lower dose, I was able to eat a little bit more, and I should have the control, but I've been so reliant on having semaglutide that I didn't care about having the control because it was doing it for me for so long. Yeah. So that's definitely something that you have to think about. And like I was saying, where I kind of checked myself the last few weeks, there were a couple times I had ice cream, I had cookies, I was like eating some sugar. A lot of it was around my period too, but I was like, oh shit, like, okay, this isn't healthy, right? Like, even though you're not gaining weight, you're not losing weight, you're still maintaining, still not healthy. And I felt it in my body. So I made some adjustments, and I will say being at the 30 weekly has made me crave healthy foods again.
Yes.
So at a lower dose.
Yep. And how's your working out? Are you working out?
I can work out. I've been so busy, so I haven't been consistent, but at least 3 times a week I'm doing something, whether it's a walk in the gym, Pilates, whatever, I'm doing something.
Right. I almost wonder if we can't do this. This is not ethical, but if you blindfolded yourself and you didn't know how much you were getting, like, I truly wonder.
I always wonder that, like a placebo.
Right. See, but that's the difference. I don't eat anymore just because it's in front of me. I actually stop when I'm full. That is like half of a bagel, half of a piece of pizza. Sometimes I look at my plate and I'm like, John's like, come on, you didn't eat anything. And I'm like, yes. Like, I did it. Like, I portioned. No, but I portioned. Yes. I mean, the portions in New Jersey are insane.
Yes.
You come here to John's restaurant, literally, like, a bowl of pasta is like this big.
It's a full box.
I eat
4 people
a quarter.
It's a pound.
Yeah.
It's a pound of pasta for a side.
I get proud leaving food on the plate.
Yes.
Not that I'm happy to waste.
The pressure to say, I need to finish this.
And I was doing that, and then I would just be so sick. And I'm like, what am I doing it for? What? Because I'm not a fun date to him anymore? Like, sorry, John, I don't care.
Yeah,
I need to be a fun date.
I went through that, being able, even right now, when you offer, do you want a glass of wine? I'm like, can I just have a Coke?
I know.
Because I haven't had sugar all day, and I feel like I'm fading.
I know.
Like,
what's your maintenance look like?
I'm back to 60 units weekly. I'm thinking about splitting it. I wanted to kind of like toy with that a little bit because
Explain that.
I feel very lethargic in the beginning, like very sluggish.
At 60.
I almost feel like it's hard for me to drink water, and I don't love that feeling. But when I was at 50 or 55, I was overeating. So I'm thinking of splitting it to see.
Are you trying?
Because like today I had half an English muffin, and only half because somebody in my house was like, "Can I have a bite?" And I was like, "Take it."
Yes.
Just take it.
Now, when you say splitting it, what she means, and we did do this with a lot of our patients. It was like about a year ago, we were going crazy testing this out on patients, and obviously to explain to them what that meant. It doesn't mean I'm giving you 30 every week. What it means is I would give her 30 units, let's say on a Monday, and then I would do another 30 on like a Thursday.
Okay.
So instead of it being like, boom, 60 units, crash, it's okay, blip 30, time goes by, but not as much time, and then blip another 30. So cumulatively in that 7 days, you're still getting 60 units, but we're not shocking our body with 60 at once and then crashing.
I think I love that.
So technically,
I think I love the idea of that.
So
and that's
monthly,
that's becoming a thing now.
Yeah.
Monthly, it would be 8 shots.
8 shots.
So are you actively trying to lose more?
Yes.
Because that doesn't sound like maintenance.
I'm not. I think I feel I'm okay with my weight. And I'm not okay with the scale though. Like the number.
But it's also
important.
It was off a lot for surgery.
Yeah.
We had procedures done. And
I did.
Like we hold it anytime we go under any anesthesia. So like a colonoscopy, endoscopy, any scoping. As soon as someone says scope, I'm like, hold it. Yeah. Anytime you're going under any anesthesia, whether it's major, minor, whatever, you really should hold it for those 2 weeks. So
I did 3 because I wanted to be more careful. But I did 3, and then I waited 3 weeks post surgery because I feel that food can speed up your healing.
Oh yeah,
in a sense. So I didn't want to deprive myself because I'm not a great healer.
Right.
So I wanted to make sure I was hungry. I did drink water, and I didn't.
Right.
So I was
that
off
is
for 6 weeks.
Like post-operatively, like your albumin levels, like your healing levels. Like if you're not eating enough protein, again, me with the broken neck or the protein, if you're not eating enough, it's just like growing a baby. You're healing, you're growing, so you're healing your own body.
Right.
Restricting yourself is only going to delay that healing process.
And I didn't want to do that. That's huge. People need to understand that. It's not like, oh, I had surgery, let me jump back on.
Yeah.
That's not good.
So my definition of maintenance, right, is like a lower dose of being on semaglutide, tirzepatide, whatever you're on, and not losing any weight. Is there an actual definition or a picture of what maintenance really is supposed to look like?
No, because I do think some patients, even who max out at 100 units, which sounds insane to both of you, but I do have patients that they confuse. They think as soon as they stop increasing their dose, that means they're maintaining, and it's not the case. Like, I have people who have remained at a low dose, 15 units for months.
Yeah.
To you, that would
And
be
we're
not
still
even enough for
losing?
maintenance. Yeah, and they lost weight the whole time. So it really depends on the patient. I say, okay, you're on when you were not maintaining, you were at like 35, let's say. You would say, Megan, I hit my goal weight. I'd say, okay, great. Stay on that for at least 4 to 6 weeks. Then, and doing it every week religiously. Then let's talk about one of two things. We can either drop the dose back and keep the weekly dosing, or keep the dose the same and stretch it out by no more than 7 to 10 days, not 2 weeks. And that brings up the conversation about why. It's a half-life. Half-life is something you learn about in nursing school, like right in the beginning of your career. It just means how long is 50% of that out of your body. So after 7 days, 50% of the medication is gone.
Okay.
So let's say you take a shot on a Wednesday today. Next Wednesday, we only have half of that in our body. If I wait 2 weeks, it's basically out of my body.
Right.
And now I'm reintroducing the medication again. You're not building off of anything.
Which was what I was doing. It was
Right.
a shock.
And I think we
every time.
forget, like, you would never catch somebody doing that with birth control. I always bring up birth control because men and women alike, everybody has an understanding and an appreciation
Yes.
for preventing
Right.
pregnancy when that's what the indication is. You would never take it every other day and hope for the best. It would be the same thing.
Right.
That's why you have to take it every single day.
Gotcha.
Because of the half-life. Same with
Right.
antibiotics. That's why some you take 3 times a day, some you take 2 times a
I
day.
didn't know that. So it's all about how fast it's out of your system.
And keeping a therapeutic level in your body. If
Okay.
you're not keeping a therapeutic level in your body, you're not building off of anything, and you're getting that roller coaster of, I feel like crap. Oh, now I'm binge eating. Oh, I feel like crap again. I'm binge
Exactly
eating.
what happens.
So how do you think there's like a perfect storm when someone should turn to maintenance? Like, when would you advise someone like, okay, I think you're ready to kind of start on your maintenance?
If they're at a goal weight, I have them go 4 to 6 weeks at that same dose. And then I ask them, would you rather drop the dose back and try that every week and see how you feel? They can always go back, right? Like, if they do, sometimes they'll do like 4 weeks of a lower dose and they panic. Maybe it's a similar situation where they're like, whether it's a mental thing, whether they just don't feel like it's as efficient, they're like, I got to go back up. Okay, fine. They're not going to necessarily lose weight forever. Your body does have a set point. It also is about how much they're eating, right? If they're severely under eating consistently, yeah, of course you're going to lose weight.
I have a silly question.
Yeah.
Can working out activate it in any shape, way, or form?
Activate the medication.
Right. I feel ever since I started working out, I'm less hungry.
See, that's actually typically the opposite, which
Right,
is
because
really
I usually get
interesting.
hungry.
Usually when you work out, you
just
burn.
strength
I get
training,
starved.
and I'm not doing. Me too.
And patients get mad at me because they'll be like, Megan, you told me to like work up to strength training. Now I'm exercising. We're going for my dose, and
And
now
they're
I'm even hungry. Like, what
Yeah,
is
I'm
going
not.
on?
Would you rather be flabby or would you rather be tight?
No,
That's how
I'm actually less hungry.
That's crazy.
I don't know why.
I think that this is so specific to, like, as a woman especially, time of the month, like what you have going on in your life,
Yeah.
stress levels,
And
like
hormones.
the hormones. There are so many things like in our body, which is why maintenance is a little bit tricky, I think. Like you said, there's so many different components that either make you hungry, make you not. And I mean, my body's different. Like, I was at maintenance and I was just fine with every 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden I wasn't.
It's almost like you talk to a third party, kind of like you guys said. You have your own idea of what you think is normal, and that's why I still encourage the monthly check-ins with patients, because I'm like, you think you're doing great, and then you'll talk to me and you feel like a piece of garbage, because I'll start asking you these little secret, like little questions you don't realize, and the wheels start turning. Like, wait, I actually kind of do feel that way. Oh, I
Yeah.
thought that was related to this, and I really start asking questions, and I'm like, why don't you try this? Hate me for it, try it for 2 weeks, try it
Yeah.
for 3 weeks. If you absolutely hate how you feel, go back to what you were doing.
Yeah,
right.
But this is what I recommend, because 10 of you felt that way last week and you're all doing the same thing. So it's
right.
my duty to be like, this is what I'm hearing. This is what I think you should try. You might think those symptoms are related to 10 other things going on in your
Right.
life, but it might be the medication.
Well, we try to play doctor something
And
too.
I
I
think
do
it's
too,
important to
even if I
document.
can't.
Have a little diary for yourself. Like, even on certain days in the calendar, like, felt tired, like,
I wish I did that.
Because it'd be interesting to see when you are close to your period, if it's the same.
Yeah.
So then you kind of,
My TikTok was sort of like my diary, but there are, like, I was only really posting about it like 3 times a week. I do wish daily I had something logged
I know.
and I could kind of go back. But honestly, when I started, I didn't know if I was going to even have success with it. I was like, hey, it's worth a shot.
I would start doing that with Ned. there's a
Right.
shift, and I want to know
Right.
why. So I want to continue to see. I'm going to start
Right.
writing things down.
Yeah, you should. I feel like it's important to just know.
And the hunger and all of that does have to do as well with like stress, sleep. You get into that habit, all of a sudden you have a bad week and you fall off eating a lot of sugar, you end up craving more of those things. And as your hormones change as well, like it just makes you want those sweet foods. And a lot of times it's like a negative feedback system.
For sure.
You fall into this cycle of then craving it because it becomes routine, but it's also like your body actually wants it more as
Right.
opposed to like something.
And like we always go, I think like as women from Jersey, I think we always go for that bagel. Like
Yeah.
we're like, oh, we just had to have a
Always.
bagel.
I had 3 bagels this week.
There's
Yeah.
always a reason
They were
to have
mini
bagel.
and they were half of a mini. I mean, but like, yeah,
Any morning celebration,
I know.
anything related
Bagel.
to a celebration, it's
It's a
mimosa and bagel.
Yeah.
And it's not just the bagel. It's either cream cheese this thick or it's the Taylor ham, bacon, egg, and cheese, whatever you call it. It's not just the bagel. It's
Right.
like everything else that comes with it. And the blue Gatorade. And then it's like you get out of control. I can almost tell who watches your TikToks when they come in for consults. Because they will immediately, well, of course, they always say, like, I told them that, like, I was sent here by Ashley, whatever. I saw your stuff on Ashley's, but then they also always ask about maintenance.
yeah.
And I'm always like, oh, is that, and like, I don't care. It's just like, I always tell them, I'm going to give you a lot of information today.
Yeah.
This is your first day.
Yeah.
You don't even have to start today.
Right.
I'm going to go into briefly what my definition of maintenance is, but just know we won't even have that conversation until A, you tried it for at least 4 weeks, and then you try like at least 1 refill. So that puts you at 4 months already, because the big question I always get is, how long is it going to take me to get to maintenance? And then they start also pulling, oh, my friend said this and my friend did that. And I'm like, it truly is different. And you also have to remember, even for yourself, you hit your goal in 4 months. That's
I know.
like very rare.
It is rare. And I just said that too. Someone was asking me how long she should expect to like take. And I was like, I said 3 months. I lost it. And it was like 3.5, which is kind of crazy. That's 10 pounds a month. But I explained too, like I've said in one of the podcasts that we filmed, there's 2 different types of people. There's the people who really struggle with getting weight off, which is why they need this. And there's people like me who I never had a problem losing weight. It was just, I couldn't get enough of the self-control. I knew that I should be overweight for where I was at. I never questioned, oh, I'm doing all the right things. I wasn't. That wasn't my situation. So I think that it's really different according to the people who,
Those are two of the
depending
main
on
categories.
Yeah.
I did all the right things for 2 weeks and expected to lose 10 pounds.
Yeah.
And then got frustrated
Yeah.
and said, screw it, and
Yeah.
went back up.
But that's what's nice about having this. And this is where I think,
And I still want you to know that I went to the doctor the other day and I weigh 130, okay? And I'm overweight.
wow.
For your height,
Yeah.
technically.
And how tall are you? So they
5'2".
know. Okay.
But I don't think I look overweight,
You
but I
don't.
think I have the shallow house syndrome. When I look in the
Yeah,
mirror
yeah,
and I
yeah,
think
yeah.
I look really good. But I
love that
I don't,
movie.
I mean, I'm a
really
size
do.
26 waist. I'm happy. But now the number is what's the mind fuck. And now I'm like, well, 130, what would I look like? Really, maybe 125 would be nice, or
But
122.
You are the
But
perfect
for
example.
who?
You're built too. You are not. You are
And I'm
never.
working out.
Yeah, you're never gonna be this like
Frail.
1980s.
But I was when I was young. I was a
Size
double
0.
zero from Express. I was so tiny.
Yeah,
I
but
was so
like, how
tiny.
old were you?
18, 19, 20.
Okay.
But we also
21.
weren't doing cardio.
Right.
We were. That was the early 2000s. I'm just guessing, right? Early.
Yeah, no, I
2000s.
was, like,
we're not
petite.
doing
We
weightlifting
also-
like we are now. Women
No.
are stronger. I
Yeah.
just
No.
had this conversation with my last consult. She has 3 daughters, and she was like, I know what my weight was for every special occasion. You could ask me
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
was 16. She's like,
Yeah.
I know exactly how much I weighed. Don't ask me how healthy I was. Don't ask me
Yeah.
how many calories I was eating.
I know.
But I know my
Right.
weight to the number. And she's like, I know it's not normal. It's
Yeah.
not right
No.
anymore. But that is a generational
I
construct.
became triple digits when I was, I think, graduated. I was like 101.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was 98 for
Yeah.
a long time. Like, that's crazy when you really
But
think about it.
also, your body changes so much. And I can attest to this. When I lost all my weight, I was 127 pounds. I look back at those videos and I'm like, fuck, I was skinny. Like my face,
tall are you?
5'4". This was last year.
We're the same.
I loved the way I looked then. I was like, oh, get me skinny. I don't even care if people think something's wrong with me. Like, I just want to be like small. And then I am now 2 pounds heavier. Literally, I'm weighing in right now at 129. And I look completely different. I shifted. Like, I think it does take your body some time to balance out a little bit. And that's kind of what happened to me. With maintenance, right? Do you put people on maintenance with the intentions of eventually they're not going to have to have an injection anymore? pay for shots anymore because I know financially it's a lot to people and whatever. But is this eventually something that you think, like, would you recommend a maintenance of saying, hey, you know, get off of it in September, give yourself a break until May, start back up again before
Oh,
summer?
yeah, that's a good question. Do you have to like cycle on, cycle off like peptides?
I actually recommend that. The way I even do the consult has changed since I started because I just have learned, even just through my patients, I don't think, and we said this many times, but it's a different way of presenting it. I don't think every single person needs to be on this forever. Yes, I go back to the studies. Yes, 2/3 of the people in the studies originally who had obesity and or type 2 diabetes, major metabolic illnesses, diagnosed issues, I do think those patients, yeah, of course they're going to gain the weight back when they come off because it fixed their blood sugar control and it fixed their underlying metabolic issues. Do I think every patient who I put on this has that problem? No, but I do think there's a large percentage of people, especially women who are going through menopause, perimenopause, and men who just have similar issues. I don't think they can do it on their own. I think they need a combination of things, but I do think there are some patients who I could say, hey, you're at your goal weight. We've been at this for 4 to 6 weeks. Maybe they're already at a pretty low dose. Why don't we try to slowly titrate you off, just like you did with you? Pick a time that you know you're mentally okay with it, because a lot of it's mental.
I'm never mentally
Slow down coming off of it.
Christmas.
Don't just be like 50, 40, 30, 20, goodbye. That's a very steep decline. You're mentally probably not ready for that. If you are, great. See you in 3 to 4 months. You're always welcome to come back, because I think it's good sometimes. Those patients, I do like to see when I get them back on the body composition tool, the InBody, a lot of times they do gain muscle back. They don't gain body fat back. Or if they do, it's not all body fat. They come back looking more muscular and they just feel better. They got some of that energy back. It's very hard to lose fat. I won't say it's impossible, but to lose fat and gain muscle at the same time, you can't. And a lot of my women come in at a deficit. They're already below the recommended amount of muscle, and now I'm going to restrict your appetite. You're not going to be able to maintain your muscle.
Yeah.
You're not getting 80 to 100 grams protein on this. It's very
No,
difficult
it's
to
hard.
do that. So that's why, yes, sometimes, even though you're discouraged and you're like, oh, I came off it and I was just eating like crazy, if you could just try to maintain the protein intake at least, get back on in 2 or 3 months, look at that body composition and see at least you gain some muscle back.
Yeah.
You kind of reset yourself.
Yeah.
And now you can always try to shred it again. It's
Right.
just like you hear about bodybuilders who
Yes,
bulk,
all
and
the
they
time.
bulk and then they shred.
Right.
That's what they're doing.
And I think a good system, and like something I would recommend if financially this is an issue and if you're someone who doesn't really maybe want to keep injecting, I think that the best thing to do is get your weight off, maybe go 5 below what you intended, which is kind of what I did. And then if you're someone who needs to titrate off for a little bit, get yourself on an eating plan for when you come off. Have everything ready. That's what I did. I didn't gain a pound back in those 5 weeks. I felt hungry again. I'm not going to lie about that. But I was so strategic. I just didn't want to deal with the food noise, which I would do again in a heartbeat. But if you're somebody who the money is an issue and those are things that you're thinking about, I definitely would say get yourself on an eating plan, because it is possible if you don't have metabolic issues like Meg always says. So it's definitely worth a shot. I think it's something that, you know, I would honestly encourage. Like,
It's a lot of mental, though. Like you said, it takes
so much
that
mental
work. It's not going to be a walk
Yeah.
in the park.
No.
And it does feel like you panic because
Yes.
you don't have that control
it's
anymore.
panic. It's pure panic. And I will say, when you get off, I promise you, the food noise comes back, and it comes back tenfold sometimes. So you just have to try and be ready for
And
that.
you eat based on memory.
Right.
That's
But
a big
you-
one.
But you eat based on memory, and your memory for the last 4 or 5 months as you were losing is a memory of less
Do you
food.
remember when during COVID when people lost their taste and they lost it for like a long and smell
And they were still eating.
and they would eat things and they're like, I can't taste it, but I love the way, like, it could be
It's
Rice
crazy.
Krispie cereal. It could be the silliest thing.
Yeah.
But just based on memory,
Yeah.
they kept eating,
That's crazy.
eating.
I know.
That's kind of like food noise.
I know. It is. That's exactly.
And that goes back to you were only on it for 3.5 months. There are people who maybe if they're on it for like a long haul, like a year or two, that's habit now.
Yeah.
Yep.
They know. It's just like people that get like the bypass to sleep. Yeah,
Yes.
surely
Yeah.
you can always eat through that. But if you really do commit to that new routine of portions, a lot of it's portion.
Right. You guys feel good on this topic?
It's just different for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I think it's good. I encourage, we're not discouraging anybody to talk about it with friends and family and doctors
Right.
and providers and us and you. But the most important thing is to be informed of how it works to then understand why we make the recommendations we do.
and talk through it with your medical provider, because I think that, like, I went into how many times did I come in thinking I was going to do one thing, and then we talked and you're like, I think you should maybe do this just off of how I'm feeling, and thinking I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I don't know. So when I get to shoot my ideas and my feelings off of her, and we kind of can collaborate on a plan for me, it makes you feel really good about what you're doing. You feel reassured. Yeah.
And a lot of it I'm getting based off, I have the advantage of talking to 20 plus patients a day.
Right.
Where you don't,
Right.
right? So
Right.
I'm talking to all these patients, and if I keep hearing the same themes over and over, I do think it's part of my duty to tell you.
You know what? Tell me a little bit about your restarts. Do you hear the same story with your restarts?
The restarts, a lot of people.
That's restart is when somebody was on the plan and they've been off of it for over 2 months, and then they want to get back.
They
on.
come crawling back to me.
I know.
Like
I get the
song. What is
messages.
it? Backstreet Boys
Yeah.
crawling back
Yeah.
to you. Like I want to just put that song on blast when I
Yeah.
get the restarts. I'm like, you ghosted me.
Yeah.
You dipped.
You're right.
Yeah.
You
Dipped around the holidays.
You didn't get off properly.
No.
Right. Which
Some of them do. And I encourage them every time. I said, we
Yeah.
did your final end of program conversation. You know, you're always welcome
Yeah,
to come
and that's
back.
important to say too. We also have an end of program call that we could really assist you with all
Yes.
these things and give you tips and tricks. And you guys ghost us, and it's mean.
Guys, my dad quit cold turkey. My dad. I'm over here giving him all the knowledge. I gave him pure access to them, and he just was like, I could do this on my own. And where's my dad, guys?
He's back.
Coming to see me today. See you at, I don't know, 3:30. But
He's so much happier.
when someone comes back, I always look at their labs again, get them back on the in-body. A lot of times they don't feel as bad as when they first came in because they're like, oh, cool, I gained muscle back. This isn't as bad as I thought. So I get that
Right.
anxiety out of the way. Then we talk about expectations. I can promise you, you're probably going to tolerate it better this time. And you might be discouraged because you're going to go through week 1 and think that you're going to be shook with all these side effects, like your
you're
nausea,
not,
your
yeah.
constipation. And you're like, wait, this is weird. I feel maybe nothing.
Right.
And I encourage them, I remind them, you might be able to tolerate a higher dose this time. Your body does develop a tolerance to having that receptor activated. Depending on how long you were off of it, that also affects things. And people are surprised that they're paranoid of being sick like they were last time. Maybe that's why they stopped. They were a little too sensitive to it.
Right.
Most times they come into it being like, I know so much more about this than when I started last time, and I want to do it the right way.
Yes.
Typically, patients come in begging
great.
me to do lower doses. They're like, I finally realized what you were saying, and now that I'm off of it, I realize how much more energy I have. So now I want to do this with your guidance. I'm not going to push you to increase my doses. I'm
Because
really
I think
going.
the higher the dose, the more rapidly your weight's going to come off.
Right. And remember,
They
we're
always think
still in like the second full year of this. So like those people who are coming back were on it in the beginning where we all were learning. Every single one of us was still learning and figuring it out and just seeing what worked best for us. And now, you know, you see people who maybe are 10 steps ahead of you and you maybe regret stopping. But my advice would be like, don't get out of control. Like even if you get off, don't let yourself get so far gone that you're just like going crazy again and binge eating and everything. Like try and catch yourself before, even if you have to throw yourself on for 3 months. Like how much money do we spend on Botox? Like I could easily say like, okay, you know what? Once a year for 3 or 4 months, I'm going to do this and commit to myself just before summer. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think that as the years go on and you start to like learn your body and know what works for you, I think it makes perfect sense. And that's your thing to yourself.
I'm waiting for more research
Yeah.
to come out about like not microdosing, but doing like cycles of
Put
it.
that shit in my coffee.
Right.
Microdose it like a mushroom.
I think as long as it's not used like to do these drastic weight loss
Right.
experiences over and over, I do think in certain people, like we said, without the metabolic, I think it can be used that way. I
Yeah.
guess only time will tell.
Well, I think
but
the
I think if it's used
oral
safely.
now is going to kind of turn everything in that direction because it's daily and it's
We have a couple patients on it, and I definitely not a salesperson. I'm almost on the negative end of the spectrum, and I say to people, not making claims that this is going to be as effective at controlling your appetite as the injection. What I think is this one does a little bit of the metabolic back work, but I don't think it gives you that immediate appetite suppression to the same extent. Doesn't mean it can't be effective.
Right.
But I think people who are looking for that, like someone like you could always try it, but I think you're more mental where you're looking for that aggressive control. And I think this does more of the metabolic back work
I
that
think
isn't
I-
as aggressive to you.
and I need the aggressive control because that's my problem is the willpower. It's not that I'm not hungry, but it's, oh, everyone's getting ice cream. Like when I'm at too low of a dose, that all comes back where right now it's so controlled.
But I don't not eat it. If I want it and I notice I'll eat so little of it that I'm legit eating the top.
You're
and the cup.
satisfied.
I'm
Yeah.
so satisfied.
Yeah.
And I read this thing once, and certain things stick with me. Like I remember I was watching the Today Show once, and it was like, eat this, not that, like that book.
Yes.
And they poured a glass, they showed you like a glass of orange juice, and then they showed you the sugar I never had orange juice again unless I really wanted it and it was fresh squeezed. But like I needed to visually see that to make changes in
How
my
about
life.
when they pull the fat pounds and put them on the table?
Right.
Versus the
And
muscle.
you're like,
Right. And then I also read that if you have, I think, 3 spoonfuls of a dessert, your brain is satisfied. So like that sticks with me. So I kind of now.
But how
now
mental is that?
But can I do that without semaglutide? No.
no.
But can
you-
I do that
you
on?
Maybe?
Yes.
But like you maybe, I don't know. You seem mental too.
I'm a
More
nutcase.
fucking
Yeah.
mental.
You're
say.
mental, but
I'm
you're
a mental
yours.
case.
It's habitual and mental,
Yeah.
but for you, it's definitely also the hormonal component, and that's
Right.
why I like having your insight. And then you definitely are full. Like, look where we are right now. We're literally sitting in
At a restaurant.
like that's
John's restaurant.
right. Like you live with the person.
Yeah.
who-
Like
here
you
all
bring
the
me home
time.
pizza.
Right, and look
Right.
what you do for a job. Like, let's just
Right.
be realistic.
On the
Like,
road.
you're in a med spa all day, so like we can't eat in our workstation. So it's
No.
a little bit easier to not be tempted by the treats. You work around brides getting ready or like event style
Bagels,
stuff.
fruit,
It's all garbage. So
muffins.
what are you supposed to do?
Right.
We have to like consider those things too.
For
I'm
sure.
at home with my 2 children who eat everything of mine, so. Even if I'm tempted, they're taking it anyway.
Right.
I get a bite and I have
Yeah.
to be satisfied
Right.
because they're going to take the rest.
And don't you understand? Like sometimes do you notice like stress is different? I guess it's if you're really freaked out, then you don't eat. Like you're hungry, all of a sudden your appetite's gone. But if you're nervous about something that hasn't happened, then you like start binging.
I'm the same
like
way.
I noticed that this week.
Yeah.
It was like either
and
happy-
happy
anticipation
feelings
Yeah.
you eat like celebratory type of anxiety, like you're just so excited and like
Right.
pumped about something, you want to celebrate with food.
Yeah, because nothing
Right.
matters. You're just like so happy. I want to be that happy again.
Yeah.
Ugh. All right. Well, I think that this was good. I feel like this covered a lot of bases. I just want to add in there that if you send fan mail on the Buzzsprout, I thought that I was going to be able to interact with you guys on there and write back, and I can't. And there's a lot of messages, and it doesn't give me the name, it doesn't give me a contact, so I can't get back in touch with you guys. So if you want to talk to me or any of us, like I posted on my Instagram, Ashley Raibick, and the TikTok too. You guys can find me there and like send me a message and just let me know what you wrote in the fan mail, because I really thought that was going to be different. I'm also just getting the hang of the podcast thing, so
We also try
One
to
thing at a
interact
time.
and engage on social media as
Yeah.
best we can. Like I obviously can't give like official medical advice, but sometimes if I see something that I just feel compelled to address it, I will comment back, and sometimes you will be like, hey, can you
I'm like, go in, Meg, go
get
at
in
it."
there,
Yeah.
throw some bows.
Yeah.
'Cause I know the answer because she's told me and I can't write it, so I'm like, can you APN RN BSN
Put your
doctor?
letters after it.
Okay, good. So thanks for watching. We hope you guys learned a lot. And as always, we're here to answer any questions. And we will see you guys again next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.